My chosen related material from the story Past the Shallows is Siegfried Sassoon, How to Die, published in 1980. In the first half of the poem, How to Die depicts the first instances of a sunrise. The poem uses simile in the first sentence, dark clouds are smouldering into red, personification in the second sentence, while down the craters morning burns. Verbs in the third and fourth, the dying soldier shifts his head and to watch the glory that returns, and imagery throughout the most of the poem. The poem tells of the night sky smouldering into the early sunrise, and of the scenery where the sun reaches down to the depths of the craters caused by the bombings, where a soldier whom somehow survived the night looks to the glorious light in the sky, where he reaches out one last time with the light reflecting in his eyes before he whispers the name of perhaps a loved one on his final breath. In the second half of the poem, it uses a rhetorical question, verbs, simile, and emotive language. At the first sentence, it uses a rhetorical question asking the reader of their opinion of what they've heard. Of the men going west, sobbing and cursing with pale faces white as chalk, looking for wreaths, tombs, and hearses, and then goes to say that Christian soldiers were taught patience and to die with honour. Even in pain, the men walk on, with one lingering regard for a decent meal before they die. Reading this poem in this generation for the first time, many people might not get what Sassoon was initiating within his text, as it was written in the late 19th century and includes texts that many people might not know the meaning to, such as hankering for wreaths, tombs, and hearses. Hankering means to have a strong drive to do something you desire. Wreaths is a name for a bundle of plants woven together into a circle. Tombs is the burial of a corpse by excavation into the earth, while hearses is a vehicle used to carry bodies in. The reason why I chose this is because the human experiences demonstrated in this poem relates to the story Past the Shallows, and to the soldiers in the poem How to Die. The similarities being the behaviour of the soldiers heading west to how the siblings behaved during their return to their abusive home and father, as well as the way that their death is described so vaguely and mysteriously, in the instance of Harry's death to the dying soldier. In the second half of the poem, the soldiers were hankering for wreaths, tombs, and hearses, preparing for their inevitable deaths. Their behaviour as they were doing it was earnest, as they were supposedly taught the way to do it, being Christian soldiers, and had come to terms with the inevitable. They were being pushed to do it by the collective human experiences telling them to be soldiers, that it is honourable to go to the war and die. In the novella, Joe was the more rebellious one. He had planned to leave everything behind and travel the world in the boat that he's been building for the past couple of years, with the help of his grandfather. While Miles was more accepting of the situation they were stuck in, knowing that he cannot oppose his father, but had tried everything in his power to protect and lighten the burden of his little brother Harry, whilst Harry has grown up ignorant of the injustice happening around him and his siblings, thinking that it was normal. The soldiers were ignorant to the horrors of war, whilst Miles and Harry's were ignorant to the father's actions and behaviour. Both parties went along with their orders, even as they knew the end result would not be in their favour, one being death and the other being stuck alone with their abusive father. In the instances of Harry's death, not much is revealed as to his perspective of his final moments, whether he felt immense fear, surprise, anger, or acceptance. This is also the same as in the first half of the poem, where it briefly describes the final moments of a dying soldier and his reaction to seeing the last sunrise, where he reaches up to the sky, whether to call out for someone or reaching out to grasp at something he is longing for. In the novella Past the Shadows, on page 213, Miles saw Harry's arm reach out the water. He saw his face there in the churning mess. The current had him now. His mouth open, his arms flailing. He was moving away, moving into the channel. In the final moments of Harry's life, Miles saw Harry reaching out the water into the sky, flailing them around to call for someone to save him. Both texts being similar, as both parties were close to death and were reaching out for something they could not reach, or would not reach them. Overall, the anomaly that is called human behaviour is a peculiar thing, that in both texts the behaviour of the siblings were similar to the soldiers, being that of the way they had accepted their fate and had tried to make it a little bit better for themselves as they were being sent to their dooms, and how similar Harry and the dying soldier are, as they both reached out to something that was not reachable. This was my analysis of the related text material to Past the Shallows of the poem by Siegfried Sassoon, How to Die. Copies of the poem and the excerpt of the passage in Past the Shallows, with my personal reflection of why I think that is the most powerful human experience, is on the website below. Thank you for listening.